It can be scary when you think about how much of our so-called personal and confidential information is actually accessible in so many places and by so many different people and organizations. You need to learn what's being done with this information and how to keep yourself secure. Welcome to My Connected Life with Tyler Cohen Wood. When you're in control of your data in cyberspace, you feel all the more secure. Now, here's your host, Tyler Cohen Wood.
Hi, welcome to My Connected Life. I'm your host, Tyler Cohen Wood. Today we have a very important episode. We're going to talk about privacy. We're going to talk about securing all the devices in your home and keeping yourself safe from hackers. And we have two very special guests. The first, Avrohom Gottheil, who is CEO and founder and host of Ask the CEO Media. Welcome, Avrohom.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
I'm very excited that you are. And then we also have Bob Carver, who is super cybersecurity influencer. He is LinkedIn's one of top 5 people to follow for tech. He is a keynote speaker and he is everything cyber. Welcome, Bob.
Happy to be here.
So I got the idea for this episode because of a post that you actually posted talking about the Chatter Bluetooth telephone from Fisher Price and some of the flaws that were found in that. And basically, there's a flaw with the Bluetooth pairing on the phone where it'll pair to any device that's asking to pair to it, which is really quite scary because it could be spying on you, or someone could utilize that and target your children. So let's start with that. Bob, sure. I think you have the article. You want to pull it up?
Hold on just a second. Let me pull it up here.
I mean, it's really scary when you think about, these devices that we have in our home, and some of them are great with security, but not all of them. And some of them you have to kind of take control.
Is that showing up okay?
It is. So
Excellent.
For those of you who can't see, this is called that toy you got for Christmas could be spying on you.
I think I had something like that when I was 5 years old, but not the Bluetooth version.
Yeah, they've added the Bluetooth. And it's like, why do they really need the Bluetooth on this? I don't know. But I guess because somebody thought it was cool, but nobody was thinking about security at the time. I know, one of the things that helps Bluetooth be a little more secure is that you have a pairing code. It's almost like a password where it's a set of numbers. And at the very worst, you have no pairing code at all. And that's what this Fisher Price toy has, where basically anything can connect to it. So if you had a neighbor, if you're in a apartment complex, or if your neighbor has a strong Bluetooth, they could connect to this phone and then end up talking to your kids and children. And who knows what that conversation would be like.
Yeah,
absolutely. And there's there are people that target kids, and this is something that's kind of scary because, like you said, hopefully they'll come out with a patch and they'll fix the way that the Bluetooth pairs. But for now, what are some things that parents can do to keep their kids safe with this phone?
They may have to take the phone apart and disable the Bluetooth. I have a feeling Fisher Price doesn't have any option for disabling it. My guess is they have the cheapest Bluetooth module that they could get in China, and it has absolutely no security. One step they could have done if they bought a little more sophisticated module, maybe cost a penny or two more, is require the PIN code. And if that PIN code is something would be difficult to guess, then that would make it a little harder to pair.
Well, and some of the from this article, they actually say they give you some pieces of advice, but they just don't seem like good fixes to me. Like one, and I'm going to read this. So people should ensure that it's powered off when not in use, because since only one Bluetooth device can connect to it, when your child's using it, always have your phone connected to that device.
Mhm.
And this is an interesting one too, because of some of the audio functions. The bugging cannot occur if the handset is put on the phone.
Mhm.
So always keep the handset on the phone. I mean, those are fixes. Those aren't good fixes.
Tell that to your 2-year-old.
Yeah, your 2-year-old
Exactly.
that wants to pick up the phone and talk on it. That doesn't work very well.
But the one thing Bobby mentioned, you talked about patching, and which is something that I think we all need to be more aware of, because this is not the first time something like this has come up. There was an incident a while back where cameras, security, baby monitors,
Oh yes.
were being hacked as well. And there was one incident where there was a stranger that was talking through the baby monitor. So these kinds of things happen all the time. And what can we do about it? So I think the first bit of advice that I would give parents before buying these toys is that we need to educate ourselves on how these things work. How do you we have to become experts on patching devices. I mean, they're all IoT devices, and we have to understand how this works. How do you log on to a Fisher Price toy or a camera and get root access and patch that? And that's really critical. So we all have to become tech people and learn how to do that.
And what's scary though, a lot of these items, and I don't know for sure because I haven't looked in, called Fisher Price and asked them, but I have a feeling the module is so cheap that there's no room for patches. I mean, they don't have the ability to put in a PIN code. So that's like the lowest, worst level of Bluetooth you can get. The next worst is where the PIN code is set as default as 0000, which is like over a million Bluetooth devices in the world. One. Yeah, everybody, that's the first one they're going to guess if they require a PIN code, because that's a default on a lot of these cheap toys. And the next thing, of course, if they had some level of sophistication, they would put at the very least a PIN code that was a little bit more randomized and at least 4 characters, even 6 would be better, that sort of thing. But they go for cheap and they go for getting it out to market fast. So unfortunate, a lot of these they haven't thought very far ahead on these.
It's extremely unfortunate because you really want to make sure that your kids are protected. And like Avrohom said, you kind of do have to you really do have to educate yourself. And, I just kind of got a crazy thought in my head. To drive a vehicle, we have to have a driver's license and we have to go through driver's ed and take a driver's test to actually get that license. Maybe we need like a DMV for cybersecurity.
Oh yeah. One other thing I'd like to bring up here, and this is one of the things I would really like to see the US and a lot of other countries do. In Finland, they start teaching in grade school, like upper level grade school, like maybe around 5th grade, give or take, cybersecurity, basic cybersecurity and basic risk management of technology. And as a result, I mean, they've been doing this for quite some time. As a result, the country of Finland probably has the lowest number of compromised PCs per capita of any country on the planet right now, simply because they started teaching. And the thing is there is courses out there that are free. It's just that you have to get the teachers and the administrations to agree to believe this should be part of the curriculum going forward. And that's the difficult part. A lot of times, teachers are in unions and that sort of thing. And, a lot of times they just don't think it's that important of thing, or the teachers may not want to know. It's like, oh, geez, I have to learn one more thing to teach the kids.
Well, I mean, no, this may sound crazy to us, but the average person doesn't think about cybersecurity the way that we do, because it's just not part of their daily lives. But I think that at this point, because we have so many of these devices, we live in this world where there has to be kind of some basis of cybersecurity knowledge. And, it's interesting too, because kids, and I just spent Christmas with my niece and nephew, and they know how to use all of these devices. I mean, they know everything. They can find all kinds of things that, I don't even know what they're doing, but they don't understand the security implications of it. So they know how to use the technology, but they don't know the risks associated with it or what to do about it. And like you said, to your point, Bob, that's something that we really need to start teaching in schools.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, I think all of us probably need to start talking to our own local school boards and seeing, when can they start implementing these type of programs, because it would be beneficial to the whole nation. Any nation that starts doing that sort of thing, it
Absolutely.
would be a very positive step forward.
Yes, it absolutely would be. I mean, I'm thinking, how could parents just very easily educate themselves on just the steps that they need to know? Because I think that it's very overwhelming. I mean, it's overwhelming to me, and I've been doing this for, God, a really long time.
Yeah, understood.
So what can a parent do?
I think you just have to, as far as parents go, they needed to learn one thing at a time. If you start throwing everything at them all at once, even the parents get overwhelmed. I've seen it happen. I just discussed more than 2 or 3 things to somebody that wasn't in the field in general, and I could just see as I went to item 2 and then item 3, it's like, oh, forget it. I give up. There's too much to deal with. So it's very difficult. So you almost have to just do one thing at a time. And I think that's sort of thing. That's how they teach it in the grade schools, I think, in Finland. They'll just go over one thing at a time, and slowly, little by little, they build upon the some basic items, like coming up with a better password. And of course, maybe as they go into middle school, maybe they start learning about 2-factor authentication and that sort of thing. So,
well, I think I've got my next book, Cybersecurity for Parents, the easy way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I've spent an entire my whole career learning this. So you can't just expect that a person who's been doing a totally different career to understand it to the level that I think that they need to, because the threat is so great. So I think I'm writing it.
Yeah.
Avrohom, you guys want to write it with me?
Sure, why not? Sounds good. But even in cybersecurity professionals, it's the field has become so much have so much overwhelming information. Millions and millions of data points and topics that the professionals have to become specialized, just like the medical field, where doctors have to specialize in certain things. I mean, there's, as you probably know, Tyler, and you, Avrohom, too. I mean, some doctors will specialize even in one disease, and because because there is more than enough patients to deal with that one disease. So they become the expert.
There's even doctors that specialize in a specialty.
Right.
In an aspect of a specialty.
Yes. Understood.
So, yeah, I mean, so expecting that people, can understand things would be like me all of a sudden saying, well, I'm going to be a cardiologist now.
Yeah, exactly.
It could take a lifetime to learn, but I can learn the basics.
Or I got a brain surgery scheduled next week. I better hurry up and learn how to do this.
No, Avrohom could do that, actually.
Okay, good. I might let him test it on somebody else first.
So what are some of the other threats lurking in your home? Like some of your IoT devices,
Well,
smart TVs,
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
assistant devices,
So I would
smart light
say,
bulbs.
I would say, some of the more common ones are smart lights. You know,
yeah,
everybody's got some kind of smart device.
yeah.
The lights that you could just control from anywhere.
Mhm.
Nest thermostat, although I don't want to pick on Google, but just in
Yeah. Oh
general,
yeah.
the smart thermostats, that's also very common. It
Yeah.
saves energy and helps you adjust the temperature up and down, um, and the like. Many
Yeah, the cameras on the doorbell cameras,
cameras, right? The
you
doorbell
know.
cameras.
And then if I could share the Alexa, recent
Sure. Yes.
the recent situation with Alexa. Can people see
Yeah,
that?
Alexa
Yeah,
tells the
Alexa
Alexa.
doorbell,
tells
touch live
tells
plug with a penny.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I'll let you read it, Bob, because it's on the
sure.
screen for our viewers.
Yeah, Alexa tells 10-year-old girl to touch live plug with penny. So basically, the girl was talking to Alexa and wanted to have a challenge to do. It's sort of a big thing to challenge a kid to do something. Well, this challenge was they plug in a electric cord into a socket like only part way, and then you're supposed to touch a coin to the two prongs that are in
Oh
the
my
socket.
God.
So, I
And
mean, the question on my mind is, where did this come from? Because somebody programmed that.
why I can tell you where it came from.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, it was TikTok. Some crazy idiot on TikTok was trying to kill some kids, I guess, by giving them the challenge of, putting a plug in halfway into the electric socket and then touching a coin to that. And somehow, and that's
Alexa picked it
for
up.
Amazon to let us know, somehow Amazon picked up on the trends in TikTok and
Oh
nobody bothered to
no.
filter that one out. Now, it was reported many, many times by parents to Amazon, and they did get that removed from the Alexa challenges. So, hopefully nobody got hurt from that. But it started on TikTok. Some crazy person, I guess, wanted to see if they could kill some kids or something. So electrocute some kids.
That is horrible. I hope that's awful. I hope that they catch that person because that's disgusting.
Yes,
That's really bad.
I agree.
And that's what's another aspect to what's scary about the devices is they're connected. So, TikTok is has, it's trending for putting pennies in a live socket, and Alexa's looking at trends and picks that
Sure.
trend up. And so it's not necessarily that the Alexa is insecure of it on its own, but it was just a glitch that had to be fixed. But
Sure.
and I'm glad they did because
Right.
Well, yeah, I
I mean,
I did put Alexa on my network for like about a day or two and removed it pretty fast. But
That was a lot longer than I did. I did it for about 2 hours, and then
yeah, it's sitting in a drawer now.
Yep.
I'm trying to decide if I should take it.
How do you do karaoke if you don't have your Alexa?
I guess you have to save some shekels and buy a karaoke machine.
It's funny. I think that I'm like I'm an advertiser's dream because I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, I need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if I don't at all.
Well,
And
that's, one of the things that I've been experimenting with over the last several years here is blocking all the ad networks to my home network. So
How's that working for you?
yeah, it's working out pretty well. I was a little concerned at first if some of that was going to break some sites. I have a commercial firewall at home, and I'm using the ad blocking part of that device to be able to block. But I also do it in the browser too. The browser can get a little more serious on the tracking and ad blocking, but
Yes.
but my commercial firewall, it's done really well, and it really hasn't broken hardly any websites at all. Only thing is I see like 99% less ads than I used to. So, which is fine with me.
That's good. Yeah.
You know, ads are one of the ways where people get compromised.
Absolutely.
And part of the tracking,
Malvertising, it's got a name, malvertising.
exactly.
Malware advertising.
What's scary though, this whole advertising and tracking thing can be so accurate that you can almost have an ad delivered to the exact person that you want. And that's sort of scary. Now, the other thing that it can do is that, say, cyber criminals, if they want to compromise a particular company, they can have ads pointed at a particular company. They can do it that specifically, and then somewhere down the line they'll put some malicious code in the ad, and a person happens to go to the website that has that ad, and they can get compromised. So,
which could
that's one of the
compromise the work network too.
Yeah. Now, of course, advertisers don't like that, and a lot of websites don't like that. It will break some websites because. So I have several browsers. Some of them I can turn it so partially on and off. That helps on reading some certain articles where they say, oh, if you really want to continue reading, you're going to have to turn your ad blocking off. And so then I usually try to see if I can do that. But
are there plugins that you would recommend? I know there are plugins to change the browser print, which we'll talk about next. But
oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. One of the ones, and there's several plugins that I've used. One of the one is called Ad Nauseam. Ad Nauseam. Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty good one. It's based on some open source technology that blocks ads, and I can't remember what they utilized, but since it's open source, there's no copyright or intellectual property involved. But so Ad Nauseam. But the other one, and I can share this with you, it's called Lightbeam, and let me see if I can. Lightbeam.
I like the name. How did they trademark that?
I don't know. I don't know if it's even trademarked, to be honest. But it works I know it works on Firefox for sure. And I can show you, it shows you all of the tracking, all the websites. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So for our listeners and not viewers, do you want to tell us what we're looking at?
Sure. It's sort of, it has all these interconnected networks, and it shows these little circles that have all these websites on it. Like one is Security Magazine, and there's a VentureBeat, Today and 24.com, Wired Magazine, thehill.com.
Is that Zillow?
It could be.
Pinterest.
Anyway, there's so many here. I mean, even DuckDuckGo has a little bit. But New York Times, of course, and DP Review, NPR. Anyway, there's literally, for people that are doing a podcast, there's hundreds of sites that it shows that they could have been tracking you all during this time. So, but anyway, interesting. It's called Lightbeam for Firefox, and it's a plugin. So,
wow.
Anyway, I do highly suggest this one because it has such a good visualization of all the trackers that are trying to track you.
Wow. And does going incognito, do you see that as a good enough fix for someone who's
actually, if the company if they're serious about tracking you, they really ignore it. Some of them will ignore it. Not all of them. Some of them are, play nice, and they'll say, okay, hands off you because you said, because you're in incognito. But otherwise, it really doesn't do that much. I don't. One of the ones I really recommend is Firefox, and set it in strict mode.
Okay.
Firefox in strict mode, and then you can add ad nauseum to that. And so, but I even go one step further. I have it blocked in the firewall too. So I have like at least 3 layers going on of blocking ads and tracking. So anyway, but
Wow.
it will at time it will break certain websites. Certain websites, especially if there's like say a financial site or something, they want to be able to have some sort of tracking mechanism to know
To
it's you and
validate
not.
who you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and not somebody else. So then I'll just simply usually go to a different browser with less protections and log in that way.
Well, there's also another way of tracking who you are
Hmm.
is OS fingerprinting, and that's if you visit a website,
Hmm.
your browser has a pretty unique profile,
Hmm.
and it'll tell the machine you're using, the browser type you're using, but it can get much more
Hmm.
in depth than that. And there are actually plugins that you can use that
Hmm.
every time your browser goes to a site, it'll have a look like it's a different configuration. So
Hmm.
it may appear to the
And,
website that I'm, coming
and
from my iPhone or somewhere else.
sure, yeah, the Firefox in strict mode has that kind of capability. Also,
That's a
Brave.
much easier fix.
Brave has a tendency to do that too. There is a site by EFF.org, Electric Frontier
Hmm.
organization. If you just Google or DuckDuckGo EFF.org browser fingerprinting, there is it's called something like pentotick or something, but anyway, it's better just to look it up on the internet, and then it'll take you right to the site. That it will do a fingerprint on your browser, and you can see how unique your browser is compared to other browsers out there.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool that they come that far. I mean, I remember back in the old days, not to geek out here, but like
Yeah.
running the get command and
Oh, sure, sure. Absolutely.
um Avraham, what do you suggest to people that are working from home and they have all these IoT devices all over the place? Their kids stuff, their kids games, the chatterbox phone, like Alexa, what can they do to keep their work stuff safe?
Yeah, and this is actually a big concern because,
Yeah.
even if you're not specifically targeted, you're putting yourself at risk and you're putting your business at risk as well. So many Wi-Fi routers have a feature that you can turn on a guest network, and what that guest network will do is that it will segment your network from from that guest network, and you can't cross the line from one to the other. So if even
Wow.
like that smart Fisher Price toy gets hacked, it's not going to cross that line and come in and hack into your computers.
That's really the best advice, is to really segment that network. And it's a lot easier to do nowadays than it was prior.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Seems.
I would also just want to circle back to the parents of that have these smart devices, and I would say that the best defense against these vulnerable devices is just simple parenting. Just don't just give these toys to your 3-year-old and walk away.
Right.
Watch them, be with them, develop or maintain a rapport with your children. So if they do experience something, something strange occurring, that they'll come and tell you about it so that you can
Mhm.
take action accordingly.
That's great advice. That's really great
Mhm.
advice, because that's true. A lot of parents, I think about when I get stuff for Axel, I just give it to him and walk away. I mean, he's a dog, so I guess it's different, but you're right. It also, that helps build rapport with your child, and it also helps the parent understand the device as well. So everybody wins in that situation.
Yeah, I think even not only at a home situation, but even a corporate situation, one of the things that was very valuable where I work is that we encourage people, if they did see something suspicious, especially like suspicious emails that could be malicious, to turn it into the security operations group to investigate rather than clicking on the link or downloading the attachment and that sort of thing to do that. And then I think it's the same thing what Avrohom was saying, if you can, get a certain amount of trust with your kids, for them to say, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? What's going on here? And, where you can protect them before they go to the next step. I think that's a great idea.
I do too. And I mean, that back to your point, Abraham, I think that it's also important to start young, like you said, 3, because it's a little different having that rapport and with a 3, 11-year-old than it is a 15, 16, 17-year-old.
Yeah.
It's going to be, because they're going to be like, Mom and Dad don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You build it, you start young.
You better not keep me from my Snapchat.
That's right.
So what about default passwords? That's a big no-no.
Yeah, big time. There should be a law against that, especially on IoT devices and routers and that sort of thing, especially consumer devices.
It's interesting you say that. So I recently moved, and I had Verizon install FiOS in my home, and they installed a Wi-Fi router, and the Wi-Fi router actually had a sticker on it with a unique password, and I was like, wow, really impressed. It had 2 passwords, one to access the administrative interface, and one, just the Wi-Fi password itself. So at least from the industry leaders, they're actually doing that already, where they're shipping devices with a unique password on them.
That's fantastic. So each device now has a unique password. So it's not, so because how on the dark web you can buy the lists of default passwords, or you can even just look it up on the surface, the regular web internet. So they're all unique. So your router's password is going to be different than mine.
Yeah, it came.
Wow, that's really smart.
A sticker on it. Yeah, the guy just put it in, and I was like, well, how do I know how to get in? He goes, take a look at the sticker.
That's good.
Now, see, that's an example. That's kind of the opposite of the Chatterbox toy.
Yeah.
That's due diligence. And I hope that we start seeing more of that, because that makes me feel very happy.
One thing, the federal government came up with a whole set of rules and guidelines before they can buy any type of IoT devices now. And one of them is, just like you were saying, no default passwords, period. End of story. If you can't get that far, then you can't be a vendor of choice for the federal government. But there's a lot more other things, that they can add to that too, as far as security, a long list of security. And I'm hoping that one of these days there will be something similar to the laws that are in place for the federal government for their procurement of IoT devices. Needs to be something like that to protect the general consumers. And it's not just protecting the consumer that has the IoT device. A lot of the major botnets that have happened over the last, say 5 or 10 years.
Yes.
Were using these consumer devices, and they were using the default passwords, and there were botnets that were going out and they were testing the default passwords, and they were just spraying them across the internet, and wherever they logged in, and then they injected their malicious code, and the next thing they know, they were taking down whole and entire parts of the internet. So it's not only for the individual's benefit, it's a benefit for the whole internet as a whole.
That was the Mirai botnet, right?
Right, absolutely.
The Dyn DNS attack.
Exactly, you got it.
What was that? 2016? No, 18.
Boy, I tell you, it's unfortunately, I see so many things that I have a hard time keeping the dates straight unless I look
See?
them up myself.
See, imagine not having spent, been in this cybersecurity career for so long and being so overwhelmed. And I think that that's what a lot of people are going through. And it's really hard. And,
Mhm.
like back to your point about the emails, Bob, they're, hold on a second.
Sure.
Sorry. So we were talking about the Mirai botnet. That's still in existence, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately it is, and several variants. Yeah, a lot of times it's the botnet operators are just sort of waiting for an opportune time to decide to let the thing loose and do its next project, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think with cybersecurity and with these digital devices, I think there's a thinking that, okay, there's been this vulnerability, it's patched, so it's fine.
Mhm.
But the problem with that is these devices and the security of these devices are constantly changing, and
Mhm.
something that is secure today may not be secure
Right.
tomorrow. Look at Log4j.
Oh yeah, Log4j.
How
It's
long has
big
that
time.
been used?
What there was
long time.
a presentation at Black Hat in 2016, and nobody did anything about it. But that's the difficulty because it's open source, so that people code this stuff in their spare time for free without any payment. So there's not any real incentive for people to go back and try to fix stuff. Matter of fact, a lot of these people have real jobs like the rest of us, and they're just trying to earn a living, and they may be very busy, doing paid jobs. So this software sits there, and well, you saw, everybody saw it had at least 3 different patches so far, and we don't know if that's going to fix all the vulnerabilities.
Yeah, which takes us back to how we started the conversation. When you get these smart toys for your kids, you really have to become an expert at patching them because, to your point, Tyler, it's secure today. Tomorrow, there's going to be a vulnerability that'll be discovered, and you're going to have to know how to patch them.
Absolutely. And the reason that I am so incredibly passionate about this particular topic is because I in a earlier part of my career, I did digital forensics, and I worked a lot of major crimes cases, and I have seen the worst that can happen to children. And so that is why I've kind of made this part of my mission to do anything that I can do to help other kids and help that from not happening, because there's nothing worse than seeing the worst of what can happen in some of these cyber crimes. So it's really important.
I don't know for certain, but I have a feeling that the Bluetooth hardware and software is so basic and so cheap that they may not even have the capabilities to update the software to
They're going to have to do a
fix that.
recall,
I think so.
like how cars do. They
Yep.
say, "Hey, we got to fix this recall."
Right. They probably, if they did that, they'd probably just give them their money back and just say, forget it, because it's going to be so expensive to fix it. It would, to fix each one of those on an individual basis and update it, it would cost more than what just completely replacing it or sending the money back.
Either that or take the batteries out.
There you go.
There you go. Either take the batteries out and put a penny in a live socket.
Oh boy.
How do they even come up with these things? Like,
I don't know, but to be honest, I had some mild electric shocks when I was a young kid.
You still have your hair.
maybe that's why. Yeah, I'm lucky to be here. 1, 2. Anyway, it was a little scary, but yeah, I mean, there was times I touched some wires that were related to a socket, and I felt the buzz from from the socket. But also the other thing I did is anybody who's run a lawnmower or something like that, touching the spark plug while it's running, it'll do the same thing. But anyway, I guess it's good I'm here. I did a lot of silly things when I was young.
Yeah, we don't recommend doing any of the things Bob did when he was
No,
a kid.
no.
Definitely not. So we've talked about separating the networks. What happens what do you suggest if someone clicks a link and all of a sudden their phone or their laptop gets the big ransomware message? What should they do right away?
Wow.
Like, what's the first thing?
Throw it out.
Could be. I'm hoping a lot of people have spent an extra few bucks to get top of the line endpoint security rather than going to their local, say, Walmart or whatever, and just buying whatever the cheapest one they can get off the shelf, because they have a better chance, in a proactive manner, better chance of not harming your computer if you have better quality endpoint security. That's the first thing. Is prevention is the number one key. The other thing, of course, is backups. Is worst case scenario, have regular backups of your system.
That is vital. You should have regular backups of your system.
Yeah, I even recommend, even in a home system, I recommend at least 2 backups. And if you're using for business, you probably ought to do at least 3.
Online and offline.
There you go.
I think the first thing that I would recommend is turn it off.
Yeah.
Power down, remove any cables, turn off your network card, and don't bring it into your work office and turn it on.
Right. Exactly. You don't want it to infect other computers on a network. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Some cloud providers let you have multiple versions of files, and they have ransomware protection. I believe Dropbox has that, where I'm pretty sure they have that, where if you need to go back to a different point in time, you can do that. So like, these are just simple things you can implement.
And that's really, I think that's really the important thing is what are, simple things that people can do, now that will improve their security, their posture significantly. And, we've talked about a lot of them: no default passwords, separating your IoT devices from your work and crown jewel devices. We've talked about Wi-Fi and how some businesses are really getting into making their devices more secure, like the Verizon router that you were talking about that had the 2 passwords. Did we talk about multi-factor authentication?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
Can we just talk about that quickly for our audience? Avrohom, what is multi-factor authentication?
Well, multi-factor authentication is basically another form of authenticating to your devices or
social media
So for example, there are authenticators like the Microsoft or Google authenticator that has changing numbers on it every 30 seconds or so. So in addition to putting in a password, you would put in that secure number, so that even if someone does hack into your account and get your password, they can't actually access your account. Other less secure forms of multi-factor authentication involve sending SMS messages to your phone. Now, I don't recommend that, because another common form of hacking involves SIM swapping, where threat actors take control of your mobile number. So if they have your password and if they feel that you're wealthy enough to want to access your bank account, they're going to find a way to steal your mobile number. And then they also have your multi-factor authentication. So I would suggest something independent of your mobile phone, like an authenticator, or many companies have this secure token. It's like a hardware form of that. That you keep.
I remember those.
Yep. And that will ensure another layer of security on your accounts.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. I mean, the SMS swapping, I definitely agree that is huge. And I mean, there's also authenticating, a second form of authentication. You'll get an email sent to you. It may be more secure to use that, but it's better to use some form, even if you're using the SMS messages, than to not use it.
Yes, absolutely. There was a study done by Google about a year ago, and they were showing, how hard it was to break into an account. And of course, the easiest was with just password only. And then they said the next best was having the SMS two-factor authentication. Then after that, it was like what Avrohom was talking about, using the Microsoft Authenticator, the Google Authenticator, Gottheil, on and on. There's many brands of that type of authenticators for two-factor. And then after that, they showed that the smart keys were actually the highest level, hardest to break in. Matter of fact, at the time when Google was testing it, they had literally no break-ins to Google accounts that were using smart keys at the time.
Really?
I haven't seen any updates on that since then, but yeah, smart keys are definitely the top tier right now. That doesn't mean that all these are perfect, but it's just sort of a good, better, best right now. And then as the cyber criminals get better, then we may have to come up with something that's even better down the road. You never know.
Well, and cybersecurity is really just taking a layered approach, because the more little simple steps that you do, the greater your security posture is going to be. And, if someone's just trying to hack you just randomly, they're going to move on to someone else.
Sure. Much easier, unless they think that you're a multimillionaire. And
yeah.
Well, if you're being targeted, that's a completely different
Sure.
story.
Exactly.
Completely different. Well, do you guys have any final tips for our listeners on their home security and their toy security, kids, all these great things that we've talked about?
Boy, I think just implement everything we talked about. Start with your two-factor, and then I guess do analysis of your kids' toys to see if they seem like they're secure or not.
Thank you.
And I just want to add, just always keep educating yourself on all the latest technology and gadgets. And before you buy something for your kids, make sure you understand what it is you're buying for them.
Well, thank you guys so much. This has been really helpful to our audience. This has been a great session. So thank you. Happy New Year. And join us next week for another episode of My Connected Life. Thank you, Tyler Cohen Wood.
Thank you for tuning in this week to My Connected Life. We have much more for you next Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Variety Channel. Until our next show, be careful with your data and your life.